If you don't understand human nature, you will keep losing control without knowing why. Most people believe manipulation only happens to the naive or the weak. In reality, it happens to thoughtful, empathetic, intelligent people every day. It happens because they assume others think, feel, and act the same way they do. They trust words over patterns, intentions over behavior, and logic over emotion. And that assumption quietly puts them at a disadvantage in almost every interaction. This audiobook is not entertainment, it is training. It is designed to slow you down and sharpen your awareness. Not to make you suspicious of everyone, but to help you finally see what has always been there. Human behavior follows repeatable patterns driven by emotion, insecurity, desire, and self-interest. When you don't see those patterns, and you react instead of choose, you explain yourself instead of holding ground. You absorb moods that aren't yours and carry weight that was never meant for you. People rarely control you directly. They control your reactions. They rush you. They trigger guilt. They use approval, withdrawal, pressure, or urgency to pull you off balance. And the moment your emotions take over, clarity disappears. You say things you didn't plan to say. You agree to things you later regret. You feel drained, confused, or resentful without being able to explain why. That is not a personality flaw. That is a lack of emotional leverage awareness. The first rule of mastering human nature is mastering yourself. You cannot read people clearly when your emotions are loud. You cannot see manipulation when you are desperate for validation. And you cannot protect your boundaries if you are afraid of discomfort. Real power does not come from dominance or cleverness. It comes from emotional control, from the ability to pause, observe, and decide, instead of reacting automatically to every stimulus placed in front of you. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to learn tactics before learning restraint. They want to understand others without understanding themselves. But self-mastery is the foundation that ends manipulation at the root. When you control your emotions, no one can rush you. When you understand behavior, no one can confuse you. When you have standards, no one can use your empathy against you. Over the next 60 minutes, you will train a different way of seeing. You will learn how emotions drive decisions long before logic appears. You will see how people reveal themselves through projection and patterns. You will understand why approval is such a powerful lever and how silence often carries more authority than words. Each chapter is built to increase awareness, not paranoia, and confidence, not aggression. This is about clarity, not conflict. The goal is not to manipulate others. The goal is to become unmanipulatable. That happens when you stop reacting and start choosing. When you no longer need to win every conversation, prove every point, or explain every decision. When you can walk away without guilt and stay calm under pressure. That is what calm authority looks like. Quiet, grounded, unshaken. If you have ever felt misunderstood, drained, or subtly controlled, this training is for you. Stay present, listen carefully, and allow yourself to see human behavior, so including your own, without judgment or emotion. Because the moment you understand human nature clearly, starting with yourself, manipulation loses its power entirely. And if this resonates, share this video with someone you know who needs clarity, strength, and control over their own life right now. Chapter 1. Human behavior is predictable. Emotion comes first. People do not act based on logic. They act based on how they feel. This truth challenges how most people see themselves. We like to believe we are thoughtful, rational, and in control of our choices. We assume decisions come from careful thinking, weighing pros and cons, and choosing what makes sense. Yet if logic truly led behavior, people would not repeat the same mistakes, stay in situations they complain about, or defend choices that quietly damage their lives. The reason this happens is simple and uncomfortable. Emotion takes the lead long before reason gets involved. Emotion always moves first. Reason follows behind it. Every decision begins as a feeling before it becomes a thought. Fear tightens the body. Excitement pulls attention forward. Insecurity seeks reassurance. Pride resists correction. These emotional signals shape perception instantly, often before conscious awareness has time to register them. Once emotion sets direction, the mind begins constructing explanations that make the choice feel reasonable, justified, or unavoidable. Logic does not guide behavior. It explains it after the fact. This is why intelligent people still make self-defeating decisions. Intelligence does not protect you from emotion. In many cases, it makes emotional decisions easier to defend. A sharp mind can build convincing narratives around choices driven by fear or desire. This is why people can explain behavior that clearly contradicts their long-term goals while sounding confident and sincere. They are not lying to others. They are protecting their emotional comfort. Behavior reveals truth faster than words, and words are filtered through identity and self-image. People want to appear calm, fair, and reasonable, even to themselves. Behavior, especially under emotional pressure, is harder to edit. Tone shifts, timing changes, energy becomes tense or relaxed. Someone who feels secure moves slowly. Someone who feels anxious rushes. Someone who feels powerful does not over-explain. These signals appear before any explanation is spoken. Human behavior is not chaotic. It is patterned. When someone feels threatened, they protect status. When they feel insecure, they seek control or validation. When they feel admired, they soften. When they feel ashamed, they deflect or attack. These responses repeat across cultures, personalities, and situations. Once you recognize the emotional trigger, the behavior becomes predictable, and what once felt confusing starts to make sense. This is why manipulation works so often. Manipulation does not require intelligence or authority. It requires emotional leverage. By creating urgency, guilt, fear, or excitement, manipulators know they can override clarity. When emotion spikes, awareness narrows. The target reacts, agrees, defends, or submits, and only later asks why. By then, the decision has already been made. The real vulnerability is not other people's emotion. It is your own reaction to it. You're only controllable at the moment emotion overrides awareness. The instant you feel rushed, offended, flattered, or anxious, your perception collapses inward. You stop observing behavior and start participating in it. Once that happens, reading the situation accurately becomes almost impossible. Emotion pulls you into the interaction instead of letting you see it from the outside. Emotional control is not suppression, it is awareness without obedience. Control does not mean pretending you feel nothing. It means noticing emotion without letting it dictate your next move. You can feel anger without speaking. You can feel fear without retreating. You can feel excitement without committing. When you separate feeling from action, you regain leverage over yourself, and leverage over yourself is the foundation of freedom. Think about moments you later regretted. Chances are you sensed something was off before you acted. A hesitation you ignored. A tension you explained away. An internal warning you dismissed because emotion wanted immediate relief. Emotion does not care about long-term outcomes. It cares about reducing discomfort now. Logic usually helps by finding reasons to support that impulse. People who understand this law stop being surprised. They no longer ask why someone acted a certain way. They ask what emotion was driving it. They listen less to explanations and more to patterns. Consistency under pressure matters more than promises made in comfort. Reactions stop feeling personal and start feeling procedural. This understanding changes how you move through daily life. Conversations slow down because you stop reacting automatically. Decisions feel cleaner because you allow emotional noise to settle before choosing. You give people space to reveal themselves through action instead of forcing clarity through confrontation. Silence becomes a tool rather than a weakness. The most important shift happens internally. As you learn to read emotion in others, you begin noticing it in yourself. You catch the tightening in your chest, the urge to explain, the impulse to respond immediately. These sensations are information, not commands. When you treat them as signals instead of orders, your behavior becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Predictability does not mean people are weak. It means emotion follows rules. Human emotion responds to the same triggers in similar ways, again and again. And as once you understand this, confusion fades. What once felt chaotic becomes readable. What once felt personal becomes neutral. You stop wasting energy trying to change people and start adjusting your expectations and boundaries instead. This awareness quietly changes your presence. You speak less, but with more precision. You pause without apology. You no longer rush to defend yourself or prove your intentions. Emotional games lose their power because they depend on reaction, and you no longer supply it. Calm replaces tension, and clarity replaces noise. This chapter is not about judging behavior. It is about seeing it clearly. When you understand that emotion comes first, you stop internalizing reactions that were never about you. You stop chasing reassurance from emotionally unstable situations. Observation becomes your default response. Not because you are detached, but because you are grounded. Human behavior is predictable because emotion is predictable. When you learn to see this, control returns quietly. Not control over others, but control over yourself. And when you control yourself, manipulation loses its grip. You are no longer reacting to behavior, you are reading it. That is where self-mastery begins and where confusion finally ends. Chapter 2. Projection reveals more than words. Ever will people rarely see themselves clearly. Instead, they describe themselves through others. Projection is one of the most common and misunderstood forces in human behavior. It happens when people remember, accuse, praise, or criticize qualities in others that actually live inside themselves. Not consciously, not maliciously, but automatically. When the mind cannot comfortably accept a trait, fear, or desire, it looks for somewhere else to place it. That somewhere else is usually the people around them. People tell you who they are without realizing it. They just don't do it directly. When someone constantly accuses others of being selfish, manipulative, lazy, or dishonest, it is rarely about observation. It is about internal conflict. The accusation is not a conclusion. It is a leak. The mind externalizes what it cannot sit with internally. This is why projection feels emotional rather than factual. It carries intensity, urgency, and certainty that goes far beyond evidence. Projection is not lying. It is self-protection. Most people are not trying to deceive you. They are trying to protect their self-image. Accepting certain truths about oneself creates discomfort, guilt, or shame. Projection reduces that discomfort by shifting responsibility outward. The mind feels lighter when the problem belongs to someone else, and because this process is automatic, the person projecting often believes what they are saying. This is why arguments escalate so quickly. When projection is triggered, logic becomes irrelevant, facts are ignored, clarifications fail. The person is not responding to what is being said, and they are reacting to an internal pressure that has found an external target. Trying to reason with projection is like trying to calm fear with statistics. The emotional charge overrides clarity. Projection becomes obvious when accusations repeat. One-off observations may be accurate. Repeated accusations with different targets are not. When the same complaint shows up across multiple relationships, environments, or situations, the common denominator is not everyone else. It is the emotional theme inside the person projecting. Patterns tell the truth long before explanations do. Projection also appears in praise. People admire in others what they wish they had the courage to express. Confidence, discipline, independence, calm authority. Praise can be just as revealing as criticism. It points toward unmet needs, suppressed traits, tunes or unclaimed potential. What someone consistently celebrates often mirrors what they long for internally. This is where emotional intelligence separates from emotional involvement. Most people hear projection and respond emotionally. They defend, they argue, they absorb blame or reject it aggressively. But projection is not an invitation to react. It is an opportunity to observe. When you stop taking accusations personally, you start seeing patterns clearly. Not everything said about you is about you. Most of it is about the speaker. This realization is deeply freeing. You stop carrying emotional weight that never belonged to you. You stop chasing explanations from people who are not self-aware enough to give them. You stop needing to correct every misunderstanding. Instead, you listen for emotional themes rather than surface complaints. Projection reveals values under pressure. What people project most strongly often reflects the traits they fear or suppress. Control issues appear as accusations of dominance. Insecurity appears as criticism of confidence. Dishonesty appears as suspicion. These projections intensify under stress because the mind loses the ability to maintain its usual filters. Understanding projection changes how you respond. You stop matching emotional intensity. You stop escalating conflict. You stop defending your character to people who are not actually talking about you. Calm becomes your shield. Observation becomes your advantage. When you do respond, you respond to facts, not emotional distortion. This is especially important in close relationships. Family, partners, co-workers, as in authority figures project more intensely because emotional stakes are higher. The closer the relationship, the stronger the projection. Recognizing this prevents you from internalizing blame that can slowly erode confidence and self-trust. Projection is also why manipulators feel convincing. They speak with certainty because they are reacting to internal emotion, not external reality. Confidence born from emotion can sound like truth, but emotional certainty is not accuracy. When you recognize projection, emotional confidence loses its persuasive power. The skill is not confrontation. The skill is clarity. You do not need to point out the projection. Doing so often increases defensiveness. The real benefit is internal. You quietly separate information from emotion. You decide what applies and what does not. You choose your response without emotional contamination. This changes your emotional posture. You become less reactive, less defensive, and less drained. Conversations feel lighter because you are no longer carrying emotional responsibility for other people's internal conflicts. You remain present without being absorbed. Projection becomes predictable once you see it. People under stress project more. People with weak boundaries project louder. People who avoid accountability project aggressively. Once you recognize these patterns, emotional chaos becomes understandable. You stop asking why people behave this way and start recognizing when emotional displacement is happening. This awareness strengthens self-mastery. You stop internalizing false narratives. You stop doubting yourself based on emotionally charged accusations. You stop seeking validation from unstable emotional sources. Your sense of self becomes quieter and more stable. Projection loses power when it is seen, not because you fight it, but because you no longer react to it. Emotional manipulation requires emotional participation. When you step out of that loop, the game ends naturally. This chapter teaches you to listen differently, not to words, but to emotional direction, not to accusations, but to patterns. When you hear projection clearly, You stop defending yourself unnecessarily and start protecting your internal clarity. The understanding projection does not make you colder, it makes you steadier. You can care without absorbing. You can listen without agreeing. You can remain calm without disengaging. This balance is rare, and it changes how people experience you. When projection no longer hooks you, your presence shifts. People sense that you are not easily shaken, not easily guilted, not easily provoked. Emotional games fail because you do not supply the reaction they depend on. And in that space, something powerful happens. You stop confusing emotional noise with truth. You stop personalizing behavior that was never about you. You begin to move through interactions with clarity instead of tension. Projection is one of the clearest windows into human nature. When you learn to see it, you gain emotional freedom. And emotional freedom is not indifference. No, it is the ability to remain grounded, clear, and self-directed, no matter what others project onto you. Chapter 3. Validation is the hidden lever of manipulation. Most people don't want power, they want approval. This is one of the most underestimated forces in human behavior. The desire to be liked, accepted, admired, or included quietly shapes decisions long before logic gets involved. People will compromise boundaries, silence intuition, and betray their own standards not because they are weak, but because the need for validation feels emotionally urgent. It promises relief from doubt, loneliness, and uncertainty. Validation feels like safety, and safety is addictive. From an early age, approval becomes associated with survival. Praise signals acceptance, rejection signals danger. Over time, the nervous system learns to scan for cues that say, "You're good," or "You belong." This conditioning doesn't disappear with intelligence or maturity. It simply becomes more subtle. Adults still chase validation, but they disguise it as politeness, ambition, loyalty, or love. This is where manipulation finds its leverage. Anyone who can control validation can influence behavior. Praise can pull people forward. Withdrawal can make them anxious. Silence can destabilize. Criticism can dominate. None of this requires force. It works because the target is already emotionally invested in being approved of. The manipulator only needs to apply pressure where the need already exists. Most manipulation doesn't look aggressive. It looks gorgeous. It appears as encouragement, attention, opportunity, or belonging. But beneath the surface is an unspoken condition. Stay aligned, stay agreeable, and stay useful. The moment that condition is threatened, validation disappears. The emotional discomfort that follows pushes people to self-correct, often without being asked. Approval trains behavior faster than rules. When approval is present, people move toward it. When it is removed, they question themselves. They wonder what they did wrong. They adjust tone, opinions, and boundaries to regain favor. Over time, this creates emotional dependency. The person is no longer choosing freely. They are managing access to validation. This is why intelligent people still get manipulated. They believe awareness protects them. But awareness does not cancel emotional conditioning. You can understand manipulation intellectually and still feel its pull emotionally. The body reacts before the mind can intervene. The desire to be seen positively overrides clarity in subtle ways. Validation pressure increases under uncertainty. When people are unsure of their worth, role, or standing, they seek external confirmation. This makes them highly responsive to praise and highly sensitive to rejection. Manipulators instinctively sense this vulnerability. They offer approval selectively, creating emotional imbalance. The target begins working to restore equilibrium, often by sacrificing authenticity. Notice how validation is often used indirectly. Compliments are paired with expectations. Praise is followed by requests. Attention is conditional on agreement. These patterns are rarely stated openly. They are implied, which makes them harder to challenge. When validation feels scarce, people tolerate behavior they would normally reject. So the need for validation narrows perception. Once approval becomes the goal, other signals fade. Red flags are ignored. Boundaries soften. Doubt is reframed as gratitude. The person tells themselves they are being flexible, understanding, or loyal. In reality, they are prioritizing emotional comfort over self-respect. The strongest lever is not praise, it is withdrawal. Silence, distance, and emotional coldness trigger the deepest reactions. When validation is suddenly removed, the nervous system panics. People replay conversations, search for mistakes, and feel compelled to repair the connection. This reaction is automatic. It is not weakness, it is conditioning. This is why emotional control is essential. If you cannot sit with disapproval, you cannot be free. The moment rejection feels unbearable, you become predictable. As you can be steered, rushed, or guilted, your decisions stop coming from values and start coming from fear of emotional loss. Self-mastery begins where validation ends. This does not mean rejecting connection or becoming cold. It means no longer outsourcing your worth. When approval is a preference rather than a need, its power dissolves. You can receive praise without chasing it. You can tolerate criticism without collapsing. You can walk away from emotional leverage without resentment. Observe how people react when validation stops working. Manipulators escalate. They apply pressure. They accuse, guilt, or provoke. This reveals how much they relied on emotional leverage. When you remain calm and grounded, the dynamic shifts. Power returns to neutrality. You don't need to confront validation games. You need to stop playing them. The most effective response is consistency. Calm tone, clear boundaries, no over-explaining. When approval no longer alters your behavior, others adjust. Some lose interest. Some respect you more. Some reveal their intentions clearly. All outcomes bring clarity. This skill changes how you experience relationships. You stop performing for acceptance. You stop negotiating your values for comfort. You stop mistaking attention for respect. Relationships become quieter, cleaner, and more honest. You choose a connection instead of chasing it. Validation becomes information, not fuel. You can appreciate it without depending on it. You can hear feedback without internalizing it. You can remain stable whether praise is present or absent. This emotional independence is rare. See, and it changes how people interact with you. People sense when validation no longer controls you. They feel less able to push, rush, or guilt. Emotional pressure loses its effect. Interactions slow down. Boundaries become clearer. Respect replaces manipulation because manipulation requires leverage, and leverage requires emotional dependence. This chapter is not about rejecting others. It is about reclaiming yourself. When validation stops being the hidden driver of your decisions, you act from alignment instead of fear. Your confidence becomes quiet. Your presence becomes steady. The less you need approval, the harder you are to manipulate. And when that need dissolves, you move through the world with calm authority. You listen without bending. You connect without losing yourself. You choose without apology. That is the freedom that self-mastery makes possible. Chapter 4. Emotional control. Is the real power. Power is not loud. Power is calm. Most people think power looks like dominance, intensity, or control over others. They associate it with strong opinions, fast responses, and visible confidence. But in real human interactions, the person who holds the most power is rarely the one who reacts first or speaks the loudest. It is the one who stays composed when emotions rise and pressure appears. The person who loses emotional control loses leverage. The moment emotion takes over, clarity disappears. Words become sharper than intended. Decisions become rushed. Boundaries soften or harden at the wrong time, whether it is anger, fear, excitement, or anxiety. Emotional reactivity hands control to whoever triggered it. From that moment on, you are responding instead of choosing. Emotional control is not emotional numbness. It does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending nothing affects you. Suppression builds tension and eventually explodes. Control means awareness without impulsive action. It means feeling emotion fully while refusing to let it decide your behavior. This distinction is where most people fail. Emotion is information. Reaction is a choice. When emotion arises, it carries data about what matters, what feels threatened, or what feels desired. But that data must be interpreted, not obeyed. Acting immediately on emotion is like responding to an alarm without checking whether there is real danger. Emotional intelligence begins with pause. The pause is where power lives. Between stimulus and response, there is a brief window. In that space, you can observe instead of react. You can breathe instead of speak. You can let the emotional surge pass without committing to it. This pause may last seconds, but its impact lasts much longer. Most people never pause. They answer immediately. They defend reflexively. They explain too much. They try to regain emotional balance by reacting outward. This makes them predictable. Predictability makes them easy to influence. Anyone who understands this can steer the interaction simply by triggering emotion. Calm disrupts manipulation. When you do not react as expected, emotional pressure loses momentum. Urgency falls flat. Provocation fails. Guilt has nowhere to land. The person applying pressure becomes uncomfortable because the dynamic they rely on no longer works. Calmness forces reality back into the conversation. This is why silence is often powerful. Silence is not avoidance. It is restraint. It communicates that you are not emotionally hijacked. It signals that you are thinking, not reacting. Silence creates uncertainty for others while giving you clarity. Used correctly, it rebalances power without confrontation. Emotional control changes how people treat you. People instinctively test boundaries. They push, provoke, or rush to see what they can get away with. When they realize emotional pressure does not move you, their behavior adjusts. Some become respectful. Some withdraw. Some reveal intentions clearly. All outcomes provide information. Losing emotional control always costs something. It costs credibility when anger spills out. It costs leverage when fear shows. It costs authority when excitement leads to overcommitment. These losses may feel small at the moment, but they compound over time. People remember who stays steady and who collapses under pressure. This applies most when stakes are high. Conflict, negotiation, relationships, and leadership all magnify emotional reactions. When emotions rise, most people default to old patterns. They argue, justify, dominate, or retreat. The person who maintains composure stands out immediately. Calm becomes an influence. You cannot control others' emotions. You can control your response to them. Trying to calm others rarely works when you are not calm yourself. Emotional states are contagious. Anxiety spreads anxiety. Anger fuels anger. Calmness, however, has a grounding effect. It slows the interaction naturally and reduces volatility. Emotional control is a skill, not a personality trait. It is built through repetition. And each time you pause instead of react, you strengthen the habit. Each time you sit with discomfort without fixing it immediately, you expand your capacity. Over time, emotional storms lose their intensity because they no longer dictate action. This skill protects you from regret. Many regrets are not about what happened, but about how you reacted. Words said too quickly, decisions made under pressure, commitments agreed to emotionally and resented later. Emotional control reduces these moments by giving clarity time to catch up. People mistake emotional intensity for authenticity. They believe strong reactions mean honesty. In reality, they often mean lack of regulation. Authenticity does not require emotional chaos. It requires alignment between values and actions. Emotional control makes authenticity sustainable. This is where confidence becomes quiet. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop reacting to every challenge. You allow situations to unfold without interference. Others feel this steadiness. They sense that you are not easily shaken. This creates natural authority. Emotional control does not make you passive. It makes you deliberate. You still speak. You still act. But your actions come from choice, not impulse. You engage when it matters and disengage when it does not. This selectivity is strength. The strongest position in any interaction is calm observation. From that position, you see patterns. You notice inconsistencies. You hear what is said and what is avoided. Emotional control sharpens perception. When you are not reacting, you are reading. This chapter is about reclaiming internal authority. When you control your emotions, no one can rush you. When you control your emotions, no one can bait you. When you control your emotions, manipulation loses its grip. Power returns to where it belongs. Calm is not a weakness. Calm is mastery. As you practice emotional control, your presence changes. Interactions slow down. Pressure loses effect. You stop fighting for control because you already have it. And from that place, decisions become clear, boundaries become natural, and strength becomes undeniable. Chapter 5. Read actions, not words. Words are easy. Actions are expensive. Most people say the right things. They promise change, express understanding, and explain intentions with convincing detail. Words cost nothing in the moment, which is why they are used so freely. Actions, on the other hand, require effort, consistency, and sacrifice. That is why they reveal truth far more reliably than anything spoken. People tell the truth through behavior, not because they want to, but because behavior is harder to fake over time. Anyone can say they care. Few will consistently show it when it costs them comfort. Anyone can claim honesty. Few remain honest when dishonesty would be easier. Behavior under pressure exposes priorities clearly. This is where most people get misled. They listen to words and ignore patterns. They focus on explanations instead of repetition. They give weight to apologies instead of change. This creates confusion because words and actions often conflict. When they do, actions are always the more accurate signal. Patterns matter more than moments. One emotional moment does not define a person. Repeated behavior does. When the same actions appear again and again across different situations, they reveal a stable pattern. Patterns are not accidents. They are habits reinforced by choice. Once you see a pattern, believe it. People act according to incentives. Behavior follows what is rewarded, tolerated, or ignored. If someone benefits from breaking promises without consequences, they will repeat it. If someone receives attention for emotional volatility, they will continue it. Behavior is shaped less by values and more by outcomes. Words are often used to manage perception. When behavior conflicts with identity, words step in to protect self-image. People explain why something wasn't really like that, or why this time was different. These explanations are not always manipulative. Often, they are attempts to reduce internal discomfort. But discomfort does not change behavior. Only consequences do. Actions show what people prioritize. Time, energy, and attention are limited resources. Where someone invests them reveals what matters most. If someone claims you are important but consistently deprioritizes you, the behavior is the truth. If someone says they want change but never alters routine, the routine wins. This realization can be painful. Accepting behavior means letting go of potential, promises, and hope. It means seeing people as they are, and not as they could be. Many people avoid this because hope feels better than clarity, but hope without evidence leads to repeated disappointment. Clarity begins with observation. Instead of asking why someone did something, observe what they do next. Do they repeat it? Do they adjust? Do they take responsibility or deflect? The next action after a mistake tells you more than the apology itself. People reveal themselves when nothing is demanded. Watch how people act when there is no immediate pressure, no reward, and no audience. Behavior in neutral moments reflects genuine character. When no one is watching, words disappear and habits remain. This principle protects you from manipulation. Manipulators rely on verbal reassurance to offset inconsistent behavior. They know words delay accountability. When you stop negotiating reality with explanations and start observing patterns, manipulation loses effectiveness. You no longer argue about intentions. You respond to evidence. Actions reduce confusion instantly. Confusion comes from contradiction. Words say one thing, actions show another. When you prioritize actions, confusion dissolves. You may not like what you see, but you understand it. Understanding is always better than uncertainty. This applies to yourself as well. Your own behavior reveals what you truly value. What you consistently avoid matters more than what you say you want. Self-mastery requires the same honesty you apply to others. When your actions and intentions align, confidence grows naturally. People respect consistency more than perfection. No one expects flawlessness. Known what earns trust is predictable behavior aligned with stated values. When actions match words over time, credibility forms. When they do not, trust erodes quietly. Excuses do not change patterns. Everyone has reasons, everyone has explanations, but explanations that do not result in behavioral change are simply stories. Stories may sound convincing, but they do not alter outcomes. Patterns persist until something disrupts them. Boundaries are built on behavior, not promises. You do not set boundaries because of what people say. You set them because of what people repeatedly do. When behavior crosses a line, clarity demands response. Ignoring behavior teaches people what you will tolerate. Watching actions requires patience. Behavior reveals itself slowly. Patterns need time to emerge. This patience protects you from making decisions based on emotional spikes. You allow reality to unfold instead of forcing conclusions prematurely. This changes how you listen. You hear words without attachment. You let people speak without reacting. You wait to see alignment between speech and action. This distance creates emotional safety. People often expose themselves unintentionally. They forget what they promised. They repeat the same mistakes. They prioritize convenience over integrity. None of this requires confrontation. Observation alone provides the answer. When you trust actions, you stop overthinking. Overthinking is often an attempt to reconcile contradictions. When you accept behavior as truth, the mind relaxes. Decisions become simpler. Distance feels justified. Boundaries feel natural. This chapter is about respect. Respect for yourself begins with believing what you see. Respect for others means allowing them to show who they are without trying to rewrite it for them. Reality does not need interpretation when patterns are clear. Actions never lie. They just take time to reveal the truth. When you learn to read behavior accurately, you stop chasing clarity from people who cannot give it. You stop explaining reality to yourself. You stop hoping words will replace evidence. You respond to life as it is, not as it is described. And in doing so, you reclaim your time, energy, and emotional stability. That is not cynicism. That is maturity. Chapter 6. Power dynamics. Exist in every interaction. Power is always present, even when no one talks about it. Most people think power only exists in obvious hierarchies: titles, money, authority, status. But real power shows up far earlier and far more quietly. It appears in who speaks first, who interrupts, who explains, who waits, and who feels the need to react. Every interaction contains a dynamic, whether acknowledged or not. Power is not about dominance, it is about leverage. Leverage comes from emotional independence. The person who needs less from the interaction holds more power within it. The one who can walk away calmly, stay silent without anxiety, and remain composed under pressure naturally shifts the balance. This has nothing to do with intimidation. It has everything to do with stability. Most people give away power without noticing. They rush to fill the silence. They over-explain their decisions. They justify boundaries instead of enforcing them. These behaviors signal emotional investment and uncertainty. When someone feels the need to convince, reassure, or defend constantly, they reveal where leverage sits. Power shifts the moment you stop reacting. Reaction hands control to the other person. Whoever sets the emotional pace controls the interaction. If someone can make you angry, guilty, excited, or anxious on demand, they can steer your behavior. Emotional triggers become handles. This is why calm people feel intimidating. Not because they are aggressive, but because they are unreadable. Their emotional state does not shift easily. Others cannot tell how to push or pull them. Uncertainty creates caution. Caution creates respect. Silence is a powerful signal. Silence does not mean agreement or weakness. It means processing. It communicates that you are not rushed and not emotionally dependent on the outcome. Silence forces others to reveal more, often unintentionally. In many cases, the person who speaks next gives away information they did not plan to share. People test power constantly. They interrupt, they challenge, they rush, they apply subtle pressure to see how you respond. These tests are rarely conscious or malicious. They are instinctive. When someone senses uncertainty, they push. When they sense calm resistance, they adjust. Your response teaches others how to treat you. If pressure makes you fold, pressure becomes the strategy. If urgency makes you rush, urgency becomes the tool. If guilt makes you explain, as the guilt will be used again. Power dynamics are reinforced by patterns, not words. Power is maintained through consistency. You do not need to assert dominance or make declarations. Consistent, calm responses establish boundaries naturally. Saying less, moving slower, and choosing when to engage signals control. Over time, others sense where lines exist and stop crossing them. The person who stays grounded sets the tone. Emotional stability acts like gravity. It pulls the interaction into balance. When one person remains steady, emotional escalation becomes difficult. Arguments lose momentum, provocations fall flat, pressure dissipates. This is why reactive people feel exhausted. They are constantly adjusting to others' emotions. They absorb moods, respond to energy shifts, and carry tension that does not belong to them. And this drains focus and confidence. Powerless interactions feel busy, loud, and confusing. Powerful interactions feel slow. They have space, pauses, breathing room. Decisions are not rushed. Words are chosen. Silence is allowed. This slowness is not hesitation. It is controlled. You cannot control dynamics you are unaware of. Most people think they are having conversations when they are actually navigating power exchanges. Who needs reassurance? Who seeks approval? Who fears rejection? These questions determine leverage far more than logic or arguments. Emotional control protects power. When you regulate your emotions, you prevent others from steering you through pressure. You notice attempts to rush or provoke without reacting to them. Awareness alone shifts the dynamic. Power does not require confrontation, and calling out dynamics often backfires. It creates defensiveness and resistance. True power works quietly. You change your behavior, not theirs. You respond differently. The dynamic adjusts naturally. This applies in personal and professional settings. In relationships, power shows up in who initiates repair, who compromises first, who tolerates discomfort. In work environments, it appears in who sets deadlines, who waits for responses, who apologizes unnecessarily. These small signals accumulate. Respect follows emotional stability. People trust those who are consistent and grounded. They feel safer around them. They also hesitate to manipulate them because manipulation requires emotional hooks. When hooks fail, interest fades. Power dynamics reveal intentions. Watch how people behave when they sense resistance. Some become respectful, some escalate, some withdraw. Each response provides information. You learn who values mutual respect and who relies on leverage. This chapter is not about control over others. It is about refusing to be controlled emotionally. When you stop reacting automatically, you stop playing roles assigned by others. You choose how much energy to invest and where. Power becomes internal. You no longer need to win arguments or prove points. You are comfortable not being understood immediately. You trust time and consistency. This confidence does not demand attention, it commands it quietly. The strongest position is neutrality. Neutrality does not mean indifference. It means emotional balance. You care without clinging. You engage without attachment. You stand firm without aggression. From this position, interactions feel lighter and clearer. Power dynamics exist whether you acknowledge them or not. When you understand them, you stop being confused by people's behavior. You recognize tests without taking them personally. You respond with intention instead of impulse. This awareness changes how you move. You stop rushing to respond. You stop filling the silence. You stop chasing control. And paradoxically, that is when control returns to you. Power is not taken, it is retained. When you hold your center, others feel it. Interactions slow down, respect grows, and the need to dominate disappears. Because true power was never about force. It was always about self-mastery. Chapter 7. Boundaries are the line manipulators. Hate boundaries are not aggression, they are clarity. Most people believe boundaries push others away. In reality, the absence of boundaries is what invites misuse, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. When limits are unclear, people fill the space with their own needs, assumptions, and demands. Boundaries exist to define where responsibility ends and self-respect begins. Manipulators do not fear strength. They fear limits. Anyone can handle confidence, intelligence, or competence. What destabilizes manipulative behavior is a clear boundary that does not move under pressure. Boundaries remove ambiguity. They end negotiation where negotiation was never healthy to begin with. People without boundaries become predictable. If you always explain, you can be argued with. And if you always accommodate, you can be overloaded. If you always forgive without change, you can be repeated. Predictability is leverage, and manipulators look for it instinctively. Boundaries are not about control. They are about self-definition. A boundary says, "This is where I end." It is not a request for permission or approval. It is an internal decision expressed outwardly through behavior. You do not need agreement for a boundary to exist. You only need consistency. Most people struggle with boundaries because of guilt. They fear disappointing others. They fear conflict. They fear being seen as difficult, selfish, or unkind. These fears are emotional triggers that manipulators rely on. When guilt controls you, boundaries collapse. Healthy boundaries feel uncomfortable at first. They create tension because they disrupt existing patterns. People accustomed to access will push back when access is limited. This pushback is not proof you are wrong. It is proof the boundary matters. Boundaries reveal character quickly. Respectful people adjust. Manipulative people escalate. They argue, guilt, pressure, or test repeatedly. Each response gives you information. You do not need to guess intentions when behavior makes them visible. A boundary does not require explanation. Over-explaining weakens boundaries. It turns limits into negotiations. The more reasons you give, the more openings you create for pushback. A simple, calm statement followed by consistent action is enough. Silence can be a boundary. Not responding immediately. Not engaging in emotional bait. Not defending every decision. Silence removes emotional fuel. It allows behavior to stand on its own without reaction. Boundaries protect your energy. Every interaction costs something: time, attention, emotional bandwidth. Without boundaries, these resources drain quietly. With boundaries, they are preserved intentionally. You choose where to invest rather than reacting to demand. This is why people resist boundaries. Boundaries expose entitlement. They reveal expectations that were never agreed upon. When someone reacts strongly to a boundary, they are reacting to the loss of control, not the boundary itself. Boundaries do not need to be loud. Firm does not mean harsh. Clear does not mean cold. Calm boundaries are the hardest to break because they offer no emotional leverage. There is nothing to argue with, only reality to accept. The strongest boundaries are behavioral. You do not need speeches. You need consistency. If behavior changes after a boundary is set, trust is possible. If behavior does not change, distance becomes the boundary. Boundaries require self-trust. You must believe your needs are valid without external validation. When you trust yourself, you stop needing others to understand your boundaries in order to keep them. This applies to all relationships. Family, friendships, work, and romantic connections all test boundaries differently. The closer the relationship, the stronger the test. Emotional closeness increases expectation. Boundaries preserve closeness by preventing resentment. Manipulators frame boundaries as rejection. They personalize limits to provoke guilt. They say you have changed, become cold, or stopped caring. These statements are attempts to regain access, not expressions of concern. Boundaries expose emotional dependence. When someone relies on your compliance for stability, your independence threatens them. Healthy relationships tolerate boundaries. Unhealthy ones challenge them. You do not owe access to anyone. Access to your time, attention, and emotional space is earned through respect. When respect disappears, access must change. This is not punishment. It is alignment. Boundaries reduce drama. Drama thrives on blurred lines. Clear boundaries remove confusion. Expectations become visible. Responsibility becomes individual. Emotional chaos loses its stage. At first, boundaries feel lonely. Some people will leave when access ends. This is not loss. It is clarification. What remains after boundaries is real connection, not convenience. Boundaries strengthen confidence. Each time you hold a boundary, self-trust grows. You stop doubting yourself. You stop rehearsing explanations. Decisions feel lighter because they align with values. This chapter is about protection. Not protection from others, but protection of your inner stability. Boundaries keep your emotional center intact when external pressure rises. Without boundaries, self-mastery collapses. You can understand human nature, control emotion, and read behavior, But without boundaries, manipulation still enters. Boundaries are the final line. Manipulators hate boundaries because they end the game. There is nothing to push against, nothing to exploit, nothing to negotiate. Being calm limits remove leverage completely. Boundaries do not make you less kind. They make your kindness voluntary. When kindness is chosen instead of demanded, it becomes powerful. When limits are respected, connection deepens. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with rules. This stability changes how you experience yourself. You feel grounded instead of reactive. You move slower, speak less, and listen more carefully. Decisions stop feeling heavy because they are no longer negotiated internally. You know where you stand. When boundaries are clear, your mind rests. And when your mind rests, manipulation finds no entry point, no confusion, no opening to exploit, only quiet certainty and self-directed calm. That certainty becomes the foundation for peace, respect, and authority. Chapter 8. Self-mastery ends the game. The most difficult person to manipulate is the one who needs nothing, not approval, not reassurance, not control over others. Self-mastery is the point where manipulation stops working, not because you fight it, but because there is nothing left to grab onto. When you no longer depend on emotional outcomes, other people lose the ability to steer you through pressure, guilt, fear, or reward. Most people think freedom comes from controlling situations. It does not. It comes from controlling responses. When your inner state is stable, external behavior loses its power. You stop chasing clarity from chaotic people. You stop reacting to emotional noise. You stop negotiating your worth in every interaction. Self-mastery begins internally. It begins the moment you notice emotion without obeying it. An emotion will still arise. Anger will still appear. Fear will still whisper. Desire will still pull. Self-mastery does not eliminate these experiences. It changes your relationship with them. You feel them fully, but you no longer let them decide who you become in the moment. This is where most people misunderstand strength. They believe strength means intensity. In reality, strength is restraint. Restraint is the ability to pause when reaction feels justified. It is choosing silence when explanation feels tempting. It is holding your ground without needing validation or victory. This kind of strength is quiet, and because it is quiet, it is often underestimated. Self-mastery changes how you see people. You stop expecting emotional consistency from those who lack it. You stop personalizing behavior driven by insecurity, fear, or ego. You recognize that most people are reacting to their inner world, not responding to you. This awareness removes emotional friction. When you no longer need people to behave a certain way, they lose power over you. This does not make you detached. It makes you grounded. You can care deeply without being destabilized. You can love without losing clarity. You can listen without absorbing emotional chaos. Your inner stability becomes the anchor that keeps you steady while others drift. Self-mastery ends the cycle of reaction. Reaction is what keeps emotional games alive. Provocation requires response. Manipulation requires engagement. Guilt requires agreement. When you no longer supply these ingredients, the game collapses on its own. This is why manipulators move on from self-mastered people. There's nothing to win, no leverage to pull, and no predictable reaction to exploit. Calm neutrality frustrates emotional strategies because it offers no resistance and no reward. Self-mastery is not passive, it is selective. You choose where to invest energy and where to withdraw it. You speak when it matters. You stay silent when it does not. You engage with intention instead of habit. This selectivity gives your actions weight. People feel this difference. They sense that you are not easily rushed, not easily guilted, not easily provoked. Conversations slow down around you. Emotional pressure weakens. Respect replaces manipulation because manipulation only works where emotional need exists. Self-mastery also changes how you relate to uncertainty. You stop demanding immediate answers. You stop forcing closure. You allow time to reveal truth. This patience protects you from impulsive decisions driven by discomfort. Most mistakes come from urgency. Urgency to respond, urgency to fix, urgency to explain. Self-mastery removes false urgency. You learn that not every feeling requires action, and not every situation requires resolution right now. This creates emotional freedom. Freedom is not the absence of challenges, it is the absence of compulsion. When you are no longer compelled to react, defend, or please, your choices align with your values instead of your emotions. Self-mastery also demands honesty. You stop lying to yourself about what you tolerate, what you want, and what drains you. You accept reality as it is instead of rewriting it to avoid discomfort. This honesty may feel painful at first, but it removes long-term confusion. Confusion disappears when self-mastery appears. You stop overthinking because you trust your observations. You stop doubting yourself because your actions align with your standards. You stop seeking validation because your self-worth is no longer outsourced. This internal alignment is what people call confidence, not arrogance, not bravado. Confidence is the calm certainty that you will be okay regardless of how others behave. Self-mastery does not isolate you. It filters your life. Relationships become fewer but deeper. Conversations become slower but more meaningful. You attract people who respect boundaries because you embody them. You repel those who rely on emotional leverage because it no longer works. This is the final outcome of mastering human nature. You understand behavior without bitterness. You recognize manipulation without anger. You respond with clarity instead of emotion. The world becomes easier to navigate, not because people change, but because you do. Self-mastery is the end of the game. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to defend, nothing left to chase emotionally. You move through interactions with presence instead of tension. You trust silence. You trust time. You trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, no one can confuse you, rush you, or control you. This is not a skill you perform. It is a state you live in. As you integrate everything you have learned, emotion, projection, validation, control, behavior, power, and boundaries, you realize they all point to the same conclusion. To the greatest leverage in any situation is inner stability. When you master yourself, human nature becomes clear. And when human nature becomes clear, manipulation loses its power forever. You have reached the end of this audiobook, but not the end of the work. What you have heard is not theory meant to impress, but principles meant to steady you. Human nature does not suddenly change after understanding it. People will still project, manipulate, seek validation, and test boundaries. The difference now is awareness. You no longer move blindly through emotional pressure. You see patterns, pause reactions, and choose responses with intention. That alone shifts everything that follows afterward. Throughout these chapters, the focus was never controlling others, but reclaiming yourself. Emotional control, clarity, boundaries, and self-mastery all point inward. When you stop needing approval, explanations, or emotional certainty, manipulation loses its grip. You become harder to rush and harder to confuse. Calm replaces urgency. Observation replaces assumption. This shift is subtle, but it rewires how every interaction feels from this point forward. Nothing external changes immediately, yet your internal position becomes stable and self-directed over time. Understanding human nature does not make life cold or distant. It makes it honest. You learn when to engage and when to step back. You stop absorbing emotions that are not yours to carry. This protects your energy and sharpens your judgment. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond deliberately. This is where freedom begins. Not freedom from people, but freedom from being emotionally controlled by them. That internal freedom quietly reshapes confidence, presence, and long-term personal decisions without effort. So you will still encounter difficult personalities and challenging dynamics. This training does not eliminate complexity. It gives you footing within it. When pressure appears, you slow down. When provoked, you observe. When confusion arises, you wait for behavior to clarify truth. These small shifts prevent costly mistakes. Over time, they build trust in yourself, which becomes the foundation for calm authority and stable relationships. That trust replaces self-doubt and reduces emotional noise during moments that once felt overwhelming internally. The goal was never perfection, but consistency. You will sometimes react. You will sometimes misread. What matters is awareness afterward and correction moving forward. Each pause strengthens self-mastery. Each boundary reinforces clarity. Each calm response teaches others how to treat you. And this is how inner authority grows quietly, without performance, without explanation, and without needing recognition from anyone else. Over time, this compounds into a grounded presence that feels steady even when circumstances remain uncertain and emotionally demanding situations. Nothing here requires confrontation or dominance. The work is internal and continuous. You practice noticing, pausing, and choosing again and again. Some people will respect this shift immediately. Others will fade away. Both outcomes are useful. They clarify alignment. What remains in your life becomes more honest, less chaotic, and easier to navigate with confidence and restraint. This selectivity protects your energy and allows you to invest deeply where mutual respect naturally exists without forcing connection or emotional compromise anywhere. As you move forward, remember that mastery is lived, not announced. You do not need to convince anyone. Your calm will speak. Your boundaries will speak. Your choices will speak. When you understand human nature and master your own responses, life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. And clarity is what allows you to move through the world with quiet strength and lasting peace. From that place, self-mastery is no longer effort, but your natural way of being daily.